whistled wet.
Wet that whistle, gentlemen.
Get your whistle wet.
Oh, yeah.
When the politicians keep politicking before you turn to excessive drinking, spend some time collectively politinkering with the show where I don't know, man. 'Cause the truth is, I don't know, man. 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 I don't know.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Politinkering. I, of course, am your host, Joseph Bonier, but you can call me Joey. With us, as always, is Sean O'Brien.
Hi, sir.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm well.
That's good. He doesn't get an applause, right?
Did we get sold to NPR? What's going on?
Yeah. I like to change my voice when I do the intro. I wanted to try radio voice and see how it went.
It works.
Yeah.
It sounds melodious.
We'll go with an NPR clap.
Thank
then.
you.
I got real close to the mic, try to engage the proximity effect.
How
Try
are
to,
we, gentlemen?
try to add the bass to my
I love
voice.
That's where I sound all velvety.
You do sound good. And with us, as usual, is Sean Fau-Burnitz.
Move this man!
How dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you, keyboard? Don't you boo, Sean.
Well, we have to get to our topic for today. And this is the one that's going to keep us on topic because it's about current events.
Okay.
It's really about the news.
Ooh.
Oh.
How do we get our news?
Oh.
Why do we need news? Why do we care about current events? Do we even need reporters? Do reporters need rules? Who holds these reporters and journalists responsible? And why is even the press important in our modern democracy?
Well put, sir.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
It's less rambly than I'm used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are like answerable questions. I didn't write them down. So now I'm sort of fucked because I don't know what they are.
I have some of them written down, but do you want to break them down by the first one? How do we get our news?
You're driving, man. You're driving.
Well, I would say that nowadays it's changing. And it's I think it used to be a lot different when I was younger, for sure. I actually used to read newspaper. Isn't that crazy?
Younger how? Like, tell me, your childhood in that sense. Like,
Yeah,
what
'cause
do
you're
you
still a
remember?
kid to
in that
us.
sense?
You're
Yeah.
right. I'm not that old. I'm 29. So
We're about the same age, roughly, but I'm just trying to remember, like, what. So, newspapers, go ahead.
Sure. I mean, in Philadelphia, where I grew up, the newspaper was the Philadelphia Inquirer. And it was pretty good, actually. I didn't really know a lot much better.
And that's
but
different than the Inquirer, right?
yeah,
Okay.
I feel like the Philadelphia Inquirer is extremely historic.
it is.
It's one of the. I think
It's
it's
like a
paper.
respectable paper.
It's
not
a
like,
respect-
Not only
paper.
respectable.
the
but
National Enquirer. That's the other one, right?
That's
Okay.
what you were thinking.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
I feel like that was one of the first ones, like possibly the very first publication.
Oh, that makes sense. That's probably where Benny Franks set up
right.
his...
I almost feel like it was. No, maybe it's not. I don't know.
It's probably
You know?
one of the first 5 or
You're
so.
the
I mean,
history guy.
but
Sure,
no,
I don't know.
Philadelphia is like one of the first colonies, the first capital of this
Yeah.
country.
Right, exactly,
So, I mean,
yeah.
the
it's
first place news would have been generated.
Yeah, and the printing press was probably invented, I would guess, in Philadelphia.
Sounds about
I
right.
don't
I'm just
know,
going to
sure.
throw that out
He's
there.
just like, he's
I'm
going to claim
yeah,
ownership
why not?
over it anyway.
Why not?
Just in
They
case.
invented the typewriter.
Sure.
I'm on board. So go ahead.
Anyways, so what was I saying? Was I saying that I don't know. Where was
Well, you're
I?
telling us about like your relationship with journalism.
You're supposed to be
growing up.
driving.
I don't want to drive.
Your relationship with journalism.
Take the wheel.
Oh yeah, I was saying the Philadelphia Inquirer. Anyways, but we also got to read the New York Times once in a while, which was
Okay.
pretty cool. So if you're in the East Coast, in the Philadelphia area, you do get the New York Times pretty frequently. So I was going to say we got it delivered to our doorstep every day. So that was something I had just had.
Yeah.
But what?
Did you read it every day?
No,
Okay.
I would take out a few sections in the sports section and stuff like that.
Comics.
Yeah, the comics for sure.
Mm.
But
how did you organize it? Was it always sports first, and you just read that, and then comics, and then
yes.
Okay.
No, I mean, I would look at the headlines of the first cover story and try to see what was going on with, the big stuff.
Okay.
And then if it didn't interest me, which it usually didn't, I would go right to the sports.
When's the last time you guys read a physical newspaper?
The first insurance job I got fired from.
How long ago was that? There's so much more to talk about than just that question.
The first
I guess
insurance job.
literally, there's like a whole hour's worth of conversation to be had there. But let's just put all that aside
It's
for
a great
now.
setup for a
And
joke.
tell me when that was.
That would have been around the 9/11 times there.
Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah.
2001.
Yes,
So 15 years ago.
Probably so. Yeah, that's
Wow.
Yeah,
Or almost 16 years ago now, I guess, right?
yeah, somewhere around there.
Almost, yeah, sure. Okay, cool.
I guess
Joey?
for me, it was probably, I'll say, high school. So what is that? 2000?
Really? The last time you fucking read a newspaper?
So that's like the same year, right?
Yeah, it's like 2004. Maybe,
Oh, really?
2003.
Okay.
Holy shit. Wow. Okay, cool.
2004, 2005, yeah.
Got it. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's strange that I never read newspaper anymore. And I think the whole point now, and that I think people have talked about this and done statistics on this, is that now we choose what we read. So it's really
It's curated.
yeah, exactly. We're self-selecting now.
Right.
We're picking what we want to read, and we're not really hearing any opinions that we don't. And this kind of leads me, or I don't maybe if we want to go down this road actually, but it definitely leads to part of the PC type of thing where we want to avoid all things that offend us and bother us.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And it does probably lead to it. This is another problem. Everyone, and I've noticed this a trend too, is that debate in general is frowned upon today. Whereas when people interrupt someone or people argue with someone, people get so upset and offended. How dare you interrupt me? I'm like, okay, fine, interrupt me, please. I want to hear your opinion.
What do you think your opinion would be?
I would love to counter it. Yeah, so sure. I don't know.
You're inviting of it.
Yeah,
That's good.
I like
Do you
it.
think so? I guess what percentage of people do you feel have that same mentality as you?
I don't know. It feels like it's diminishing. That's for sure.
Do
And
you?
I think it might be because of the internet, because we're just so disconnected. We don't even have discussions and conversations anymore. I mean,
Mhm.
everything is texting and twittering. And
Mhm.
wow,
So people might
tweeting.
disagree, but they don't pay attention.
That's true. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I thought that's what you were saying. I'm sorry.
But no, that's it is. But I think that it's just that it didn't used to be this way, and I think that maybe it's debating is a skill that's just lost, but it's an important one. And I think,
I disagree.
You're wrong.
but just like the way to do it is lost. Like
Yeah,
not just
the art
not
of
the
it.
information and the knowledge is there. It's
It's
just
a craft.
yeah. Why?
You got me.
Call back.
That was good. That was a very good call. Although this episode's probably going to come out before that one, but we'll see.
Well, yeah, whatever.
I don't know.
Call back to the future.
Oh.
Sorry, continue.
So anyways, I guess my point was that news is changing now and that we're going away from the printed style of opinionated news where we actually kind of weigh both sides of an argument to here is an extreme opinion. You will read it if you agree with
Well,
us.
is there a distinction? But go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say that that whole fair and balanced idea was a contrivance of the 70s and 80s. That's your first inauguration to the news, but before that, everything was extremely opinion based. So I mean, even in the days of the old printing press and stuff, you bought a printing press because you wanted people to hear your fucking opinion. You didn't, it wasn't necessarily to spread democracy. It was to spread your ideals.
But is that so different than a Roger Murdoch today?
Who's Roger Murdoch?
Oh, sorry. The head
Rupert
of, the-
Murdoch?
I'm sorry. My bad. I think you're right. I think it is.
framed Roger
yeah,
Murdoch?
Roger Moore, Roger Rabbit.
Roger Murdoch is like, I think it's the guy from Airplane or something.
Yeah, something like that.
You're right.
Mulder?
Rupert, you're talking
Yeah,
about
the
Rupert
Fox
Murdoch?
News. No, right. He's not the own.
Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, Rupert
Yeah,
Murdoch.
Wall
What
Street
about
Journal.
him? Yeah. He
I'm
owns
just saying,
everything. Yeah.
He's out in it for his opinion too, isn't he? I mean, he's out to
That's
project.
what he's saying.
Yeah,
That's what Sean's saying.
And-
I'm saying it hasn't changed since
No,
the printing
well,
press.
Oh no! I mean, I think there was a drastic change in the 70s and 80s. There was this big push to get the balance of things. So there was this idea where if you had a Democrat on, you also had to have a Republican on, even
Right.
though one of them had a ridiculous opinion that was completely superfluous. So I think we went through that heavy stage, and now the stage that we're in is kind of the pendulum swinging back the other way.
That's true. I think it went farther than the 80s. I think it went all the way up to Crossfire, and I think it went all the way up. I think it's like 2000. And what really screwed up was Jon Stewart. Jon Stewart
Oh.
went on Crossfire. Do you guys remember this?
Yeah.
And he basically said why are you hurting America? Was his question.
Mhm.
Was like all of this.
Was this before you had the Daily Show?
No, it was
It
while
was
he was
during
like
Tucker
really-
Carlson and then brought him on.
Exactly,
gotcha.
Exactly. Yes, it was during, but it was like what kind of brought. It was earlier. I think it was like 2003, 2004. I'll guess maybe around then.
I don't know.
That's a
I
guess.
honestly have no idea.
But I mean, he was basically kind of threw that down, and I think that kind of leads me to my other point in that
You think that that's the turning point?
No,
of journalism.
I think that took Crossfire off the air, which
Sure.
was At that point, maybe the
was
last
Crossfire that
gasp
relevant? I don't remember it being.
Yeah,
but I mean, isn't it all the same still? It's still just
Yeah.
talking heads, barking
Guys
at each
shouting.
other.
it's still pretty
yeah.
bad. You're right. I don't think it's changed that much.
Yeah.
I just think that
If anything, it's gotten worse, actually. Like, that was vaguely interesting. Like, Joe Scarborough, like, the Joe Scarborough show, all that shit, and Crossfire, like, those were vaguely... There was basically,
I
like,
didn't
Jerry
mind
Springer
it
for, like...
as long as they were arguing, in good faith and legitimate, but it seemed like they were kind of just, demagoguing. If you
Yeah,
will.
it devolved into screaming
sure, but
matches
at least
constantly.
it was a little bit more concentrated then. So, like, they sort of had to... They had to... It was shouting... There were shouting matches, but at least it was more concentrated. Now it's like CNN and MSNBC, Fox News is essentially just a shouting match 24/7, and it's just this weird, odd amorphous of like, or amorphic. What the fuck is the word? Right?
Amorphous.
Right.
Yeah.
Amorphous blob
Blob,
of non-information.
Right,
It's
because
weird.
well, as an entity, you don't have to take responsibility for opinion. So if you have
Right.
24 hours to fill, it's way easier to fill that with opinion than it is with fact.
Right.
Fact takes time, it takes effort, it takes manpower, it takes
Yeah.
boots on the ground.
Right.
Opinion, that's what we fucking do. Like,
Right. Yeah, seriously.
I mean,
I mean, are you better informed if you sift through, 24 hours of all three shows, so essentially 3 days worth,
mhm.
in order to find the facts themselves, or are you better informed just by watching a half-hour comedy show?
Yeah, I mean, most people get their news from the Daily Show these days, or shows like that with a
Off
comedy
topic, how do you guys
angle.
like Trevor Noah? Have you guys been watching?
I have a little bit. I think he's good. I think he's not as political. He doesn't quite take as many political stands, I don't think, as
Well, I
Jon
think
Stewart
he's.
is.
What do you mean by political?
He doesn't. I don't know. He doesn't quite give it the 110%. I think maybe behind it. He's good. I gotta say he's good. And you know what? It's really tough for me to judge because Jon Stewart wasn't good at first either. It takes a while to get into the swing of it, I think.
That's part of it, yeah. But I guess what I meant is, I think he's equally political. It's just he's not political about the quote unquote politics.
Yeah, maybe that just
know what
might
I
be
mean?
that he hasn't lived in America
It's kinda
quite
like
long
us.
enough.
Huh?
He's
Kind of like us. We're
Yeah,
not political about
precisely.
politics.
We're philosophers. We're amateur philosophers.
but
We
he's a
barely
good
talk about
comic.
politics.
Like he's a funny stand-up
He's an
comic.
amazing
so
stand-up.
no one can deny that. But
I think he's important for the Daily Show too, though. I mean, he's bringing again. So he's talking
agree,
much
it's
more
important.
about race relations, much more about not necessarily CIA, but like NSA kind of stuff. He's more interested in that type of element.
that's true. I guess that's true.
So there is no, like, right now, this entire time in the Jon Stewart regime would be, what do they used to call it, democalypse, I guess.
Exactly. I think that it's a victim of just being in Jon Stewart's shadow right now, and that I want Jon Stewart to be on right now because of this craziness
Right.
going on in the
Oh
election.
my God, I was thinking that the other
it is-
day,
and
right?
I think even someone said, maybe it was Seinfeld or Bill Maher was talking about Jon Stewart, and he was like, "Why would you retire now? Now is like the juiciest time ever. Like, not
Yeah.
only is it election year, but it's Trump."
I
And-
know.
Oh my God.
I know.
so-
I don't know. Do you think Jon Stewart would be disheartened by the situation, or do you think he would be invigorated by it?
I think he just got tired of doing it. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
That's what.
That's
no, I
true.
understand. What I mean is, if he was still around,
Mhm.
would it give him another wind,
Oh,
or would it become even, or would it further suppress his sort of, his faith in humanity? 'Cause that's basically why he left.
yeah. I mean, that's,
It's tough to
that's certainly
say,
what
yeah.
it's done to me.
I don't want.
Weltschmerz, they call that.
Hmm?
Weltschmerz? It's German. It's the kind of overwhelming sensation you have about when you try to comprehend all the woes in the world at once.
That's
Wow.
a very German concept.
Yeah.
They have
I
really
love
good
that
words.
Word. I love that word.
Say it one more
Weltschmerz
time.
is like-
Weltschmerz?
I think it's Weltschmerz.
Weltschmerz with a T.
Weltschmerz. I don't know if I think there's a T, but I don't know
T
if you
sound.
pronounce the T.
I'd never be able to spell it. Don't even try.
WELTSH.
don't even try.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No, Schmerz. SCHMIRTZ. I think that's totally wrong. I apologize to all German speakers out there, but Weltschmerz. But it's a powerful, powerful word. I remember the first time I heard it, it blew me away. I'm like, oh my God, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I've been fucking feeling these last like 15 years. Holy shit.
It's true.
Anyway.
They have one single word for feelings that we take like sentences and
Yeah, yeah.
paragraphs
Yeah,
to do.
exactly. They really do.
Yeah.
Schadenfreude.
Schadenfreude is
Yeah. I'm sorry, though. But again, so what do you think about Jon Stewart as far as that? Do you think it would reinvigorate him, or do you think that he would be further disheartened by the reality of this election?
I'd
This
like to-
fucking election.
I'd like to
man.
think. I'd like to think it reinvigorate him.
But is it really funny though? I guess that's the thing. Is it funny? Is
No,
Trump doing so well
it's
funny?
and Bill Maher said this last night. It's becoming sad.
Well,
Or someone
It was
said
sad instantly for fucking me. It's not. It's never
Didn't
been.
we decide in the comedy episode, though, that youth and rage are kind of requirements? So, like, once you get to a certain level of complacency...
It's going to become funny once again.
We opened, Will, we postulated Wheeler's hypothesis of that.
Yeah.
I don't think we agreed upon it.
All right. All in favor?
Nay.
Aye?
Nay.
Yeah.
Nay, I don't think that's true. Because remember, I think what I said was it's just the artist's energy. So it's not. So there might be an element of truth to somebody, to an older person being out of touch with society and losing their rage, and thus that's what makes them no longer funny. But I would hesitate to just put a label on that. I would broaden it to the older you get as an artist, it's more difficult to tap into those passions.
Right on.
So yes and no. Sorry, Joey, continue. Take us.
Well, what were we talking about with the Daily Show? I think that it's kind of interesting that we are getting more of our news from comedy today, and maybe not just necessarily the Daily Show, but you look at even back in when Jay Leno would read the headlines or something like that. We're still interested in hearing.
Top 10
we're still
Johnny Carson.
Even whether we want it in a nice form, with sugar coated, we still want to know what's going on.
But I mean, does that go back as far as like the Wandering Minstrel? Does that go back as far like
the Town Crier?
Yeah, just the idea of like needing to be slightly entertained with our information as well, edutainment or
Yeah, I mean, whatever, a spoonful of vinegar or whatever.
Sugar.
Damn it.
You've been doing shit wrong for a long time.
Terrible. A spoonful of vinegar.
You know what's ironic? I think
Come here, children.
a spoonful of
Is this
vinegar is good
medicine
for
not
you.
tasty? Here's a
Exactly.
spoonful of vinegar.
It makes the fish oil go down easy.
Cod liver oil and vinegar.
Listen, I lived in an orphanage in a Charles Dickens novel.
More, please.
That's how we grew
I
up.
want some more. I'm sorry. Yeah, continue. Take us.
So I guess that's what I was leading towards was that I think it's an interesting place that we've gone where we can't really find a lot of true debate. So I flock to places like Real Time with Bill Maher, one of the few TV shows where people are actually talking honestly and just debating stuff.
Yeah. Long-form conversation.
There's not many. Podcasts are another one. That's why I like podcasts.
Actually, I listened to Bill Maher as a podcast. I never watched the show.
Oh,
It's
the
still good as
overtime
a
or whatever it is, I guess.
Well, they do the whole show as a podcast.
Do they really?
Yeah, they just
Oh,
release
I
it.
didn't realize that. That's
Yeah.
kind of cool.
It is cool.
It
works.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know how much those discussions are informative, though.
What do you mean?
Yeah, it's not a debate. I mean, it's a lot of Fox News type shouting from just the other.
Sure,
angles.
honestly, it really.
But that
yeah,
depends upon the guest. I mean, he could get some shitty guests, who get demagogues for sure. But then you learn from that because someone will obviously counter that and be like, and call them out in their bullshit.
Well, yes and no. It is an interesting point as far as the purpose of debate, right? When it gets down to it, the purpose of debate isn't necessarily for you to convince me of your
it's not
opinion
about
or for me.
winning.
Right, exactly. It's really more about the people listening, and the people listening are the ones who hear the two different sides,
Right.
and they side one way or the other.
Right.
That's really it. The odds of us convincing each other of our points of view are slim to none in some instances. You know what I mean? I mean, ironically enough, we do a different kind of thing here, but
I mean, for me, the purpose of debate is figuring out what the fuck I think.
no,
But-
exactly. And you know what? Me too. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever. Maybe with the exception of the art episode, but like, but certainly, I think it is. It's better if you go into it trying to understand what it is that you believe, rather than trying to convince other people of what you believe. To be on your side of something.
Mhm.
If that is the case, then usually it becomes more about just trying to get the listeners onto your side, not necessarily the other person.
That's good. I think you're exactly right. I'm curious, where did you learn that concept? Where did that come from? Did you ever take a debate class? Like where did this come from for you? What's your history, I guess, with like that kind of stuff, with debating or getting news? Like, how did you?
Wow, what a good question. I'm not sure I understand it.
I guess that's you're right.
Why are you
I guess-
such a verbose, vivacious?
Why do you have your skill? Not skills, but where did that value
God
of debating come
damn,
from? I
you know
know
Is
what?
it just that East Coast argumentativeness
I'm
that
curious.
gets like ingrained?
maybe it is.
People, okay.
Was it just we break each other's balls so much?
How do I
Breaking
break
my
this
balls.
down? What a great question.
Breaking
What a great
balls.
question. Let me start with this. People always, for some reason, my entire life, have said to me, "You always have to be right. You always have to be right." And I've rejected that vehemently. ironically.
Yep.
And at a certain point, I stopped rejecting it and I simply say, you're right. So I don't have to fucking deal with that question anymore. But that aside, there is something to be said because it's like people always say, you always have to be right. You always have to be right. And I'm like, I really genuinely fucking don't. I don't care what the right answer is. To answer your question, Joey, what I'm most interested in is what is true.
Yeah.
That's my history of debate, quote unquote. I want to know what the truth is. That's all I fucking care about. Back before internet, you sort of had to debate these little elements of it. And I just wanted to know which one of us was, or what was the correct answer. Not so much who came up with it. Maybe I have it. Maybe you have it. Maybe it's something we haven't discovered yet. So it's within that discourse that I find exhilarating. So
You're a perpetual devil's advocate.
Well, within myself, perhaps. I don't know if I go so far as to say I'm a perpetual devil's advocate. I'm a perpetual seeker of the truth. That's really it.
Skeptic.
No, not skeptic either.
Yeah,
not skeptic either. It's not a question of that.
Half full to be skeptic.
Yeah, really. Well, no, it requires skepticism to understand whether or not something has validity in reality, right? So whether or not something's true, you have to kind of question whether or not it might be true or it might be false. And of course, the opposite of true is not false. It's not true, believe it or not.
Yeah. Well, I feel like skeptic just has a negative connotation in general.
Well, sure, certainly. I don't.
Or a pessimistic connotation.
Perhaps I don't subscribe to that at all. I would describe myself as a skeptic, or a perpetual devil's advocate, etc. but it doesn't go into answering the question at heart, which is what is my history of debate? I guess as a point.
It's a strange question to phrase like that.
It's a good question though. It's important. I've always to make a long story short, I've always just wanted to know what was true, and that at times has come off just because I'm a passionate guy, and probably it is the East Coast thing, and it's like a ball busting thing or whatever. Maybe I really don't know, but I don't give a fuck who has the answer. I just want to know what it is.
Okay.
and it's that's the thing I'm searching for. That's what I care about. And
good.
Whether I have the opinion or not, or you, it doesn't make a difference. So and I've always been that way for as long as I can remember. And so I've never even seen it as debate because I'm not trying to convince you one way or the other. If anything, and sometimes if it does come off that, or probably did in my youth, it would simply mean the fact that I have this point of view and I want you to fucking argue harder against me. That's basically it. Like if I'm actually making a claim, the reason I'm so passionate against it is because like, why aren't you fighting me harder?
So it's like an S&M thing.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if I go that far. Perhaps, maybe. I don't think it's, but I'm not.
Intellectual S&M. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not getting. I guess I'm getting enjoyment.
stretch.
I get it. I don't know. I'm being too literal about
the
joke question. I know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's maybe because
analytical
it's such an
son
important
of a
question.
bitch.
I'm sorry. I gotta learn to laugh.
Okay, so I have another question for either of you guys. Do you guys?
No, pick one of us.
Okay, fine.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Sean Fau.
Hey, fuck you.
Shit, I can't play favorites.
You can't
I'm
win.
teasing. Go ahead.
Okay.
Question.
Do you read? I guess.
Nope.
Poor Shelley's just trying to get out of fucking question.
Trying to think. Do you absorb by osmosis?
Yeah.
Any?
It'd be diffusion. You need water for osmosis.
Shit.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Dispersion.
Diffusion.
He's right.
Okay.
Diffusion.
Yeah,
No.
dispersion is whatever. We'll get
Yeah,
it later. Go ahead, Joey.
Concentrations.
We need a Neil deGrasse Tyson
I'm
episode.
telling you what it is. It's diffusion. Dispersion is when you're
I'm just
sorry.
God, man, get off my balls.
Some science fight.
All right. Joey.
Okay. Do you read or absorb both sides of the news, if you will? Like, do you read? Like, would you
seek out the opposite?
Would you seek out Fox News and The Guardian? Would you seek out the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune? No, hold on. Is that the? Sorry, hold on. Washington Times.
Well, I mean, all the papers in Chicago are liberal, so there's no
I
like.
thought there was one Chicago one that was leaned right. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry. Do you
whatever.
read both sides?
Yeah, no, I when I am in news mode, I do actively seek both sides. I do actively seek to find the opposing view, which is why I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh a lot. I think you have to know your enemy in that sort of
Did you agree with Rush?
Like anyone, there's certainly valid points. There are, things to agree with and things to vastly disagree with. Right now, it's been probably 10 years since I listened to Rush, but I couldn't name a single thing that I agreed with him on or disagreed with him on for that matter.
But he was entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, the man could command a mic. I mean, like a one-man, one-mic show is fucking, really difficult.
Objectively, it is.
Yeah, I have tried to do it a couple times. It ends in an abject failure. It's but
I enjoy it.
Well, yeah, my floundering is amusing to some of you bastards, but
All of us.
We love it.
It's great.
But no, I think it's extremely important to seek out the other views. If you just surround yourself with sycophants, then you just become engrossed in that and you have no concept of what's outside. I mean, that's just, a ridiculous way to do anything political or that affects other fucking people.
How do you guys view journalists in general? Do you guys, have you ever thought about becoming a journalist? Do you think it's a noble profession? Do you think that they should be upheld to specific rules and regulations?
Yeah.
Either of you.
Well, yeah, I'd ask O'Brien, do you think there is a criteria for being a journalist?
Hang on. What just happened?
Yeah, I guess I asked 3 questions. Sean narrowed it to
I can answer all of those questions.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
but wait,
let's narrow it down.
Which question am I being asked? What happened?
No,
I just tried to
Is there a
simplify
criteria
into one.
for?
Is there a
for
criteria
journalists?
if you're being a journalist first? And what is that criteria?
Is there a criteria for being a journalist? I
Yeah.
feel like that's a whole "What is journalism" episode. That's going to be tough.
I suppose.
Yes, there is a criteria for being a journalist, but the criteria is simply: are you spouting news? It's as simple as that. I mean, if I explain to you that a car accident just happened outside, I am a journalist.
Okay, yeah. That's kind of where I wanted to establish
Okay.
Essentially, my definition of what a journalist is someone with a pen. Like even that doesn't matter.
Even if they don't write it down,
Right.
Essentially, yeah.
Could it be someone with an iPhone?
Yeah, and that's just a placeholder
right.
for that conveyance of information. So if you're a town crier, that's just as valid of journalism as anything else, in my opinion.
Yeah, the purpose of journalism, I would say, ultimately is to inform.
Yeah, dissemination of information.
Yeah,
Certainly.
exactly.
So
but you sure?
So everyone,
What was the other question?
I'm curious if you guys view everyone online who's got a blog as a journalist. Do you think that they are? I mean, I guess it's part of your criteria. Do you think that that's
If they're yeah, I mean, if they're
so? Anyone with a blog?
the answer to your question is yes. But I think that the heart of your question is: are they responsible? Are they good? Is that a good way to govern society? Should it be the case that everybody can be a journalist, or is there some certain training? Right? Is there some sort of regulation required for you to be a journalist with a at the very least middle case J, not necessarily a capital J, but like
I think
I don't know. It's lowercase, but it's bigger than the other letters, so it's like 14 font versus 12.
Fucking capital numbers.
You love the capital letters thing. That's like your. Oh, it's so good.
What's the best way to describe
The middle
what we're
case
talking
J?
about?
I understand. I agree that there should be some middle case J. There should be some sort of criteria because I'm annoyed with all of this pseudo journalism. I guess I would call it.
What is pseudo journalism?
It's someone with a blog who claims to pass on knowledge but doesn't really have any primary sources.
Well, okay, so okay.
they're just okay. Sorry.
I would say that's where it's incumbent upon the reader.
Yeah.
That to me, like the whole idea of the Second Amendment, if we're going to go all American on it, is that the
First Amendment, I think.
I'm sorry, Jesus Christ.
Okay.
I get so impassioned about the second.
I was going to say,
it gets overwhelming. I'm going to hold the bookstore hostage.
The second part of the First Amendment.
Yeah. No, the
Freedom
idea
of the press.
freedom of press. Yes. In my opinion, that refers to the instrument, the actual printing press, not necessarily a member of this organization called the press.
Sure.
Or called, whatever you want. So to me, that is protection of the conveyance of information, regardless of its form or function or source. As long as libel and slander law comes way later than the Constitution, but certainly it's incorporated in that. So as long as you are not, actively harming someone else with your words, then that is all considered journalism.
I think you're right. No one should saying we should censor or anything like that. I think that's But I think that maybe we should be elevating the journalism that is to a higher standard.
Well,
But then, isn't that censoring though?
yeah, should we be
It's not
requiring?
censoring, but it's.
Do you need to have a permit to be a journalist? Then is that?
Well, we do sort of have press passes, but that's not the same.
Well, that's
that allows the
credentials.
access.
That's I mean, anyone
It
can
allows the
stand
access
out.
to
it
the
seems like
news,
anyone
if
can
anybody-
get that anyway. By the way, if you start your own blog, you might be able to get press.
Well, yeah, but I
Yes.
mean, just in general, things are. I mean, in
That's
legit.
access to the witnessing of the news, not the ability to express whatever the news was.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
then-
and that's
then
just logistic concerns, though. I
Yeah.
mean, you can only
Right.
fit so many people in the building. Everyone is welcome to stand outside and ask questions as people are going away,
Right.
but you can only hold so many people, per fire code. Fuck.
I feel like the core of your question though is it a good thing, the fact that everybody could be a journalist now, or do we is responsible journalism more important than just the ability to be a journalist?
That's true.
I mean, I guess because to answer one of your other questions was, sure, I've actually absolutely thought about being a journalist. I think part of it was that reality that nowadays it is kind of a weird, in between now. I didn't, I didn't study communications. I vaguely know nothing other than just my own understanding of what responsible journalism ought to be.
Mhm.
But yeah, because I think everybody sort of is a journalist. Therefore, it opens up the question to me of, well, okay, how do we make this better? Because I feel like, at the core of the question is, where do you get your news? I don't know, man. It's tough. I
Mhm.
really don't. I get it from Facebook. I get it from
Yeah.
everywhere. I get it from you guys.
Where do you get trustworthy, accurate news?
Right, and that I don't know. I really don't know. I have to research it myself. And if I'm fucking already doing the research,
Mhm.
well, then I may as well get paid for writing it down. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's it's tough.
That's the black hole of all news junkies.
It's really true, man. I mean, I don't even like the news. Growing
Yeah.
up, I fucking hated politics. I hated the news. I didn't
Yeah.
give a shit about any of it. I turned off to it. But nowadays, it seems so crucial. It seems important.
Just to give you my sort of history, I have I would classify myself as a recovering news junkie.
Recovering news junkie?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am the type of person that spent hours watching C-SPAN.
Ugh.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, so that it's something that I've felt very very strong. It's like I said, it's a black hole that you just get sucked into,
Sure.
and the more you start digging, the worse it is.
Why,
So
okay,
I've
when
cut
did you
myself
start?
off.
When did you start watching C-SPAN?
I've
And what was the drive?
Yeah, no, I've always been like flipping around there. One of the I guess one of the best things you can watch on C-SPAN is the British Parliament and just like watching the
Sure.
way that they yell at each other and stuff.
It's true.
But there's, I think, because I've always liked talk radio, because I've always liked that sort of open conversation. C-SPAN was the only place that like,
Right, and it is
would,
raw. It's
yeah,
exactly what's happening.
exactly. And they were the only ones that would like entertain notions that everyone else would just, dismiss out of hand and,
Right.
and proceed with. So, that was always a really nice source of news for me. But, I guess, with 9/11 and with all of the 24-hour cycling that went on there, and within a couple years, once I guess I kind of accelerated my news gathering at that point. But
Got it. Well,
um,
also so did the rest of the world.
yeah, and
It's
that
just easier to gain everything.
exactly, and out of fear of assuming that there would be a draft at some point, and those.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
no one knew at that time. We look
No, I
back
understand.
at
Yeah, I got
those
you.
were certainly valid concerns,
Sure.
and like, but kind of once I started to realize the whole Bush regime and just how contrived everything was, I realized I just kind of had to shut it out. Like,
Got
there's you can't just keep on that cycle. So now I dabble when I try and stay abreast of the giant topics, but
Mhm.
I really don't like to dig into things. One thing that really strikes me about the difference between news today and news when I was consuming it on a larger scale
Mhm.
is the idea of the inverted pyramid. So do you guys know? Are you familiar with that? The AP inverted pyramid?
Vaguely.
Okay, so the basic concept is that you start your story or your news piece with your headline, and then every sentence
Oh, yes.
from
Got
there
it. I understand.
gets drilled down into more and more specifics.
Right.
So you start with the broadest information. The whole idea is that the person reading the newspaper could read the first paragraph or so and get enough information to move on to the next story.
Right.
If you wanted to, you could keep drilling down and getting more and more tedious details.
Which now is been bastardized.
Exactly. Now it's
clickbait.
completely flipped on its head,
Right.
where they give you the juicy headline and then they bury the information under
Right.
20 paragraphs of bullshit,
Yeah.
and it just makes consuming.
Now it's just
the
a
news-
regular pyramid.
Yeah, it really is. It's just it's a disgusting sort of bastardization
Yeah.
of that entire marketing, idea.
Mhm.
I mean, part of the idea of the inverted pyramid was like half, the first couple paragraphs would be on the front page, but then the rest of the story would be like 3 pages in next to all the ads.
Mhm.
So it was the same thing, just going from a different perspective, but it certainly made consuming news more possible.
Yeah.
Like,
See, it's funny. I feel like I get most of my news, or I get the headlines from like Facebook.
yeah.
I'll just be browsing the Facebook feed,
Yeah,
or even
I do
Twitter, or
too.
really anything, and then or I
Then
guess
spiral
BuzzFeed as
off.
well, like BuzzFeed, and then it just spirals off. But
Yeah.
you can get everything because
Mhm.
it'll you just okay, cool, that's an interesting topic.
It
You
trickles
click it,
down.
and then you just you click on 2 or 3 more articles if it's an
Yeah.
interesting article, or
Well, you
just
also
one more if it's sort of lame. But I almost always cross check it with like whatever the top one on Google is, and then like something
Mhm.
else, question if it's debunked. But it only takes it takes less than a minute to get everything you need to know about this one little element.
See, I
Well,
don't
you-
think people will take that extra minute.
Yeah,
Like,
and you
I
have
don't-
to take
You're
into
right. I
account
don't think they
like,
do either, but I
hatred-
do.
Oh.
Hatred? What do you mean?
Well, and I was just saying, you have to take into account my hatred of reading. So,
Oh, yeah,
the
okay.
idea that, you would need to check 18 sources to
Right.
verify that this paragraph was correct is just too daunting a task for me to care
Yeah, I guess
about.
that's fair.
I'm kind of a crazy news junkie, I would say, right now.
Mm.
I'm not recovering. I'm current news junkie. I read
Where do you get your news then?
I read a lot of different websites. I got to say, and I'm ashamed that it's not more newspapers and stuff like that. But
Why? Is there a difference?
sometimes not, sometimes yes. I will say I read.
In fairness, though, by your own admission, you haven't read a newspaper since high school, so
I mean,
you may have no idea.
I
whether or not it's
meant
different.
physical. I've read the New York Times online.
Oh, okay. Well,
Oh.
then that's fine.
Does that count?
Yeah.
Well,
I
I
kind of being.
I guess. I think
not
the
the
core
same.
of my question was the physical, which, by the way, I do that like once a month. I'll buy like a New York Times. or
That's
whatever.
awesome. I wish I. did
But it's the
that.
same thing. But I don't read the New York Times as often as you do. That's the difference. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I see- I
So
agree.
who between the two of us, who's more informed? And I don't fucking read the whole goddamn thing. I usually just read like the opening, and then I'll be inspired by something in the first couple of articles that I've read. Next thing I know, I'm in a fucking rabbit hole of like
Right.
insanity, and I'm a month later I finished the script, and I'm like, fuck, where the hell, what just happened? All I want to do is read a newspaper.
I'm in the same way, but for instance, I'll read Drudge Report. Drudge Report, I get a lot of the right wing stuff that
Okay.
I don't necessarily agree with, and Drudge Report is all headlines. It is literally like no frills, all headlines, and they're obviously some of them are at the right wing slanted, and the headline is usually something really controversial,
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
out there. Like they have the top headline with a picture, and then everything else is just black font, and it's just basic. And you click on it, and it leads to usually a right-leaning blog site or something. Anyways, I like it. I obviously I don't agree with maybe 99% of what's
Sure.
on there, but I like kind of seeing what the right wing is up to and what they're reading. I'll check in on Fox News once in a while. I'll read The Guardian. I read The Economist.
The Guardian is more liberal or conservative?
Liberal.
Okay.
And it's also there's an English version, a UK version, and
Okay.
an American version. So I sometimes look
The
at
Guardian was the one that broke the Snowden story, right?
I believe so.
Okay. Trying to remember just. in
There's
general.
also these other websites that I try to avoid, and I want to make a note. Some of these. This is what I mean by pseudo journalism. One of them
Sure.
is Salon, like that kind of website.
That sounds familiar. Okay.
Salon.com. What they do is a lot of the shady stuff that I kind of have observed ever since kind of I listened to a couple of behind the scenes stuff from a few podcasts and people I listen to. And a lot of what they do is they force, similar to what Crossfire does, they force debates and into controversial and overly biased topics to force response articles, and then they'll get paid for the traffic that goes to
Oh,
there.
that's interesting.
So
Okay.
they'll try to
So they're
offend.
trolls in a weird way. They're trolls
Exactly.
before the fact.
They'll try. What they'll do is they'll publish some controversial article that
Like
blasts
reaction videos?
in articles usually. They're just
No, I mean, like the
equivalent of,
concept.
yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right on.
Similar. Yeah, exactly. And they'll try to get the hits.
Gotcha.
And it all leads to tons of traffic, and they're pretty famous for this, and they're popular, and they get tons of money. And it bothers me because it's not only that, it's like taking away what people would normally be reading the news. So,
Do you think those people are still informed and are just suppressing the information in order to gain the commerce element of it, or do you think that they are uninformed?
probably a little bit of both, but my cynicism would say commerce. My cynicism would say
So they are informed. They're just being
it's like stupid or liar.
specifically irresponsible. Yeah. Okay. Exactly. You're right.
Wait,
Is it,
the consumers of that news?
no,
Of
the
Salon?
writers.
Salon.
Oh, the
writers.
writers of Salon?
Well, there's also the writers, and there's also the website who's really making the money. Salon as a website. The writers, I think, are
Oh, so
not.
the writers might be trying something, but then the editors of the site
Yeah.
itself will alter whatever
think
it
so,
is,
yeah.
or at the very least force their writers to alter it.
But this is a model. This is not just that. This is just one example. There's a ton of these websites that do this,
Sure.
and it's a shitty ass model because it's
Mhm.
like
That
Yeah.
all kind of goes back to that opinion thing, though. So, you don't have to be responsible for opinion, and you can fill pages of it
True.
without having to do much work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, what's the difference between the Salon writer and the the CNN?
fact checking, I guess. Hopefully,
Well, maybe, but I mean, if it's not their right, if neither is doing so, then
Yeah.
what difference does it make?
Well, yeah, and-
they're both equally at fault, right? Or no?
Well, there's tons of stories of that just sort of story trade that happens where someone, writes a story and then, another place picks it up, another place picks it up.
Right.
No one ever goes back and fact
Yeah.
checks the original.
Right.
And you find out the original was just, made up and completely planted.
All of a sudden, the actor comes out. He's like, "I'm very much alive. Sorry."
Yeah, exactly.
What do you guys want me? Here I am.
Yeah. So, I mean, it gets into that idea of who can you even trust? Like, how do you even go about verifying your sources in this sort of infinite source of news environment that we live in?
Yeah. How do you do it? How can you usually tell the difference? I mean, even besides the fact that you hate to read,
Yeah.
how do you usually tell whether something's true or false?
Well, I'll tell you what, as long as we're giving out plugs, one of my favorite sources of news is a podcast called No Agenda. They are, I guess, what you would call like a news digestion and analysis show.
Mhm.
So they kind of concentrate on trying to get the news from as many different news sources and then comparing and contrasting, the opinions there. Certainly a conspiracy bent on a lot of the stuff, but it would be considered fringe media to most people. But that is kind of my I guess my most trustworthy source in that they at least footnote everything and source everything.
Well, but but they're like conspiracy theory website, basically.
No. I mean, they're
in the
news
conspiracy-
analysis, but they one of the two hosts has a much more conspiracy bent than the other. So that
Okay.
that I find to be an entertaining aspect
Oh,
of
okay, got it.
keeping to coming back. But they do very good news analysis.
Got it,
essentially.
okay.
So
I think. Go ahead.
no, it's just that's it. I mean, unfortunately, just as many sources as you can get, like you do with reading different things. I just try and get it from as many different audio sources as possible.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not sure if it's necessarily just the fact that I read, or I cross-check the articles. I think most of the time what it comes down to is the claim, right? So
A little bit of gut instinct.
partially that, but it's also just we go back to the debate element of it. If you are the one making the claim, then
Mhm.
it is up to you to prove that claim.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And that's where I essentially become the judge of whether or not something a story is true. It's not so much whether or not the story is true or not; it's whether or not I believe the truth itself, or whether or not I believe what you're saying. So if you are making a claim, Shakespeare didn't exist, right? Okay, there's just an easy one. Shakespeare didn't exist.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. I'll entertain it, no problem.
so for you, it is innocent until proven guilty. I guess you'll believe it until you.
No, I didn't say I believe it. I don't believe it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were just saying Shakespeare
I'll
didn't exist.
entertain
You'll entertain
every
it.
claim, period. I will entertain every single claim you can possibly say. I under almost no circumstance will I immediately dismiss a claim unless I've, thought through the implications quickly enough and understand it and dismiss it. But I'll entertain any claim, period. If you're the one making the claim, i.e. the journalist, it is up to you to prove it to me whether or not this claim is true or false.
Okay.
That's it. It's as simple as that. And we can extrapolate that into, a million different things. So Spotlight is a good example, right? I don't know if you guys saw Spotlight, the movie. But again, that's what it comes down to as far as responsible journalism, because you don't break the story until you have verified its truth. Okay. So if you as a journalist have all the evidence lined up completely, and you can sit down in a courtroom or in front of me or whatever as a judge, and you can kind of give me all the evidence that you have, and to formulate this story about what is true, what actually happened, then I can just get out of the way because it's perfect. You have all your evidence, you've backed it up, you've made your claim. I'm willing to, I'm. It's not that I believe it; it's just that I'm more convinced than not that this claim is true.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what it comes down to for me with believing news stories.
And so can anyone earn that cachet in your mind? Is there a point where someone has proven things enough over time and over again that you
I consider them a reliable source?
Yeah, like the old school idea of like Walter Cronkite or whatever, where like the entire country just believed whatever he said at any point.
Yes, I can't think of anybody who holds that esteem though to me.
Mm-hmm. Not even like a Jon Stewart or like.
And then he's the first one that came to mind. That but the funny thing is, it's not that I would go to him for news per se.
Mm-hmm.
It's that I would go to him for opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that
same
goes
thing these days. But
it is the same thing these days, but it's different as far as this particular question,
totally.
as far as whether or not I believe the claim.
Sure. Let me make the joke. God.
You sorry? I can't. I'm sorry. God damn it! It's so hard for me with philosophical things because I'm like, and I fucking push my glasses further up on the bridge of my nose. I'm like, well, technically, sorry, man. You're right.
Sorry, man.
It's a joke. Yeah, if it's an opinion, then it doesn't matter to me. And if the opinion has merit and is an interesting take on whatever the situation is or is not, for that matter, then I'll entertain it because it's just opinion. But at the core of your question, I can't think of anybody who is just I just believe.
What about organizations like the New York Times? Do you trust them because they've been
perhaps
consistently?
It's still not. I think I.
Are you going to fact check everything?
Yeah, exactly. There's got to be some stuff you don't want to. You feel like you don't have to fact check.
Well, it's not a question of just fact checking, like cross checking. It's a question of recognizing the claim in and of itself. There could be an article in the New York Times that I read and just doesn't sit right with me. You know what? A great example is the Apple thing. The Apple thing that just came out, right? Which I still haven't. Which I I've read a couple sites, but I still I'm unwilling to believe this or not, just because I don't know. Man, the claim as far as with Apple was that they they have a way to break the encryption for their
iPhones,
the San Bernardino, right, for the San Bernardino, one of the San Bernardino shooters' iPhones. And it seemed to me that Apple would have a key that could open it, or in other words, a way to open it, and that was what the FBI wanted. Right. But what my dad specifically was saying that no. What the FBI is saying is that you have to use your resources to develop a way to break into that.
Right.
So those are two conflicting stories.
Right. And so the understanding that I have of it is that the FBI is actually not asking them to create anything really new. What they are asking them to do is to create a copy of their OS that will be able to boot on this phone that will bypass a single security feature, which is the automatic deleting of information after 10 incorrect password tries.
Right.
So the idea being that they only have to disable this feature. They don't have to really change anything.
Right.
They've written the request in such a way that it actually falls under most of what most people would consider the reasonable search and seizure, because it's done through the warrant. So they're as far as I understand, technically not asking them to create anything new and anything that is, they're just allowing them to do a brute force attack of just trying passwords over and over until they get into the phone.
Sure. So that's what my gut instinct initially was.
Mm-hmm.
And then specifically my dad was telling me, no, the FBI is is asking them to create something else. And I was like, that doesn't seem right at all. That just doesn't sit right. And then I looked and cross-checked that and found a couple sites that were confirming what he was saying. And again, news sources were saying the same thing.
Yeah, that
but
was
it
the
still
general
didn't sit right. It still didn't sit right.
Right on.
So I was unwilling to just believe it because it just didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say. I didn't fully believe it, period. My initial gut instinct was that's crazy. Now, of course, if that was the case, obviously, my opinion on the whole entire situation changes. That goes back to the Jon Stewart answer, right? My opinion on whether or not, what Apple was doing was wrong or right and what the government was asking was wrong or right changes completely based on which one of those stories is true.
Totally.
But I guess, and even now, you're confirming what my gut instinct is saying. But it's just you telling me. So it's not that I don't believe you. It's not that you're not a reliable source. It's just that,
no, and
you know what I mean? It's like I feel a little bit better because, cool, I hope that that's right.
Well, I will state my source on that is the No Agenda show that I was just talking about.
Okay, there you go. So sure. And nevertheless, and I don't, and I guess at the core, once again, at the core of your question, I don't know what would convince me. I'll tell you when I become convinced.
You're right.
And that's pretty much a case by case sscenario. I
makes sense.
I tend to remain, as I don't want to say objective as possible, but I tend to, I don't believe something until I'm sufficiently convinced. Period. And that's usually what drives me whether or not I believe a news source. As to where to find that answer, I don't know, man. I mean, it's tough.
So. Is the news currently too entrenched in the consumerism and to be able to actually perform its function?
What is its function?
Well, I mean, ideally, I believe its function is the fourth estate, the idea that they are the check and balance to the entire system, and the idea that they're supposed to be constantly, pushing up against that to find what the truth is. So if they are beholden to the almighty dollar, what's to stop them from holding back stories that are against or, not necessarily going to be profitable? When you have GE sponsoring your newscast, there's a whole lot of corporations under that are going to be disappointed if you were to start having news stories that were not in their favor, or, talking about their poor product manufacturing, or their use of labor in China, and their use of different non-eco-friendly materials.
Joey, what do you think?
I think it's right. There's definitely a conflict of interest there, but I don't know if there's any other way. It just seems like mass media costs a lot of money, and it's going to be a big business.
Well, there was the way that it was. I mean, like TV news was considered a requirement. It was considered it was a public service, essentially.
How are they funded?
They were funded essentially by the the commercial from everything else, but they were supposed to be.
But I don't understand.
Well, so the idea was that in order for NBC to get their broadcasting license, part of the deal of the government giving them those airwaves is that they had to use so much of it for public good or public service. So a big portion of that was dedicated to news. So the news was originally never anything that generated revenue. It was always a lost leader, but it was a requirement of your FCC license in order to be able to be a TV station.
Okay.
That has all pretty much gone away now, and it has become a revenue generation machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like the radio. They force you to do the news every hour or so. It's funny. I don't know if it's still. I guess it's still like that. I don't even listen to the radio. And
yeah, it's another question too. I mean, who the fuck listens to radio?
Yeah.
Totally.
It's tough, man. I mean, it's, podcast and Sirius, I guess. Is Sirius still radio or podcast radio? Is there a difference?
Yeah.
Probably the modern replacement.
Satellite radio, terrestrial radio. I mean,
It's
it's
the
still
same, right?
it's
I
still
mean-
waves being broadcast. So
But
I'll
this
give
gets
it to
back
you.
to our form of choice. Like, we are going to choose the podcast. We are going to choose Sirius XM stations, whereas
Mhm.
before we just had we only have 103.1 and
Yeah.
So what are the
103.9.
factors that go into you deciding which sources to read or listen to?
A lot of it is just, I mean, personal bias. Is just, you want to see what you want to read, what you agree with, just to feel like you're right. I think.
Do you think that most people are like that?
I think statistics have shown that, actually.
Information bias.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
think
no, not information bias.
selection bias.
Selection
yeah,
bias.
Selection bias, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's
it's
it.
a real
Yeah.
thing. I mean,
Yeah.
No, I agree. I think so too. I think it is. I don't like it, but it's true. I
Well,
guess.
and it's something you have to actively fight against. I mean,
Sure,
it's something I feel naturally drawn to like-minded folks as well.
The
Right.
fact
But
that we
I-
watch The Daily Show, I mean, that's obviously leading towards our left-leaning environment.
Right. Which, by the way, the Nightly Show has been so much better.
It is good.
Nightly Show is fucking amazing. I've seen every episode, man.
Good show.
It's such a great show.
I've been very disappointed by the new Craig Ferguson show, Join or Die. I was hoping for a more
I didn't even know he had a new show.
I didn't know that either.
yeah, it's a new talk show on History Channel. But
Wow.
A
it's
talk show on the History Channel?
Yeah, it's a
That's-
weird
wow,
format.
okay.
Yeah.
They I thought it would be a little bit more free flowing, but it's like a really structured thing where they like pick 6 things and then just kind of like discuss which is the worst.
Okay.
It's kind
That's kind of, I guess, vaguely interesting. I'll look it up.
It's amusing, but it's not what I was hoping for.
How about John Oliver?
I like his show.
Yeah,
He's good. I mean, he's
Yeah.
also on HBO, so he can say a lot more than he wants. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm aware of his show mostly in like the clips that are posted rather than actually
Right,
watching
yeah.
the show.
I
My-
saw a clip of Sam B's show. It was really good.
Yeah, it's good. I've
Full
seen her.
frontal.
She's got 3 episodes now.
Yeah,
they're good.
That was
They're
pretty
all
funny
good.
too.
Yeah, they're good. They're okay.
So it's interesting. These are all kind of successors and children of the
Oh,
Daily
yeah.
Show.
All spin-offs.
Oh, well, yes.
Seems like it.
Yeah. Well, no, certainly. But I mean, the Daily Show still exists. It's
Yeah.
just a question of
Yeah.
like what, they
But-
could arguably.
So are Steve Carell and Steve Colbert.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
They've had some pretty successful spawn.
I mean, is it oversaturated now? I mean, are those news sources more reliable than CNN or CNBC? You know what? The other thing we didn't get into too much because Wheeler fucking talked it down, but we got South Park, right?
Mhm.
I mean, is South Park? Obviously, none of us look to South Park for the news. In the same, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you know what? That's what's funny about it too. Because again, there's that distinction between opinion and news.
Yeah.
Like, I don't watch the Daily Show or the Nightly Show or Sam B's show or fucking any show really for the information itself.
Went their take.
Necessarily speaking, I'm not going into it for that. Right. I'm interested in the take. I want to know what the take is. The information I hold as separate. So it's not like I go to those sources as news. And Bill Maher always says on his show, he's like, a lot of people come here for the news. And it's like, that's fine. I understand that.
Well, the thing is, they have a joke, and they usually set it up. So they will give you a sentence.
It was the
The headline.
Yeah.
And then they'll give you the joke.
Oh, no, I know.
So
it's
I
a
guess-
throwaway line. I know. I understand.
You're right. It's not the news.
But at the
it's,
time-
it's,
right.
It's
But- Well, I think the sort of position there, though, is not necessarily that people are going there for their news, is that they're not going anywhere else for any other news. So
Okay.
they just go to Jon Stewart and, his headlines and then his take on the headlines
is all the
are
news that
enough
they get
information
to
for
Right.
most people.
Right.
whatever those writers deem to be very funny that day is not always the most important news story.
Exactly.
Right, which I
Yeah.
think is almost a null and void statement, though, because it's almost impossible for you to fucking be online for 5 minutes without seeing some news story. Correct or no? I mean, maybe I'm crazy.
Well, the thing is, I was going to also bring this up about promoted news stories
Yeah.
because this is a whole nother
Mhm.
aspect here. But you're going to see a lot more news stories on like the side of Facebook or even on like the bottom of CNN.com. There's like promoted news stories which have their
Right.
little section,
Oh,
which is like right below their headlines. They have headlines and they have like another 10 headlines and they have promoted. So
Right.
obviously that's getting kickbacks and money from their clicks. So
I was thinking of a little different type of promoted news, but I think that would be promotional news. What I was thinking of, like when they do a story about how Coca-Cola is like really helping this country in Africa, and
Right.
it's almost obvious product placement,
Oh, I
and
see. Yeah.
that there's that sort of crossing over of a lot of, you see that a lot with like drug companies too, where
Mhm.
like the amazing new facts about or amazing new ways to fix your Alzheimer's or whatever it is, and then it's about this company that just developed an Alzheimer's drug or whatever.
I mean, is commercialism the downfall of all this?
That's my
I was gonna say
that's
like
my running
yeah, it
thing,
seems
isn't
like
it?
that is
Yeah.
your gag, man. Commercialism brings down everything from you.
Yeah,
but it's also bringing down the newspapers. Why is that? I mean, like, they're not making money, so they're going down. So should we?
well, they're not making money for
Because
the.
it's a broken system.
Yeah, I mean, because the free version came around.
Yeah, there's
it's
no reason.
it's why the music companies started losing money. It's the free.
Should we bail out the newspapers?
Well, that's the thing. Again, I think we might be better off going to make it a public service rather than, it's a requirement of being a
is kind of a
participant
bailout.
in our system. It doesn't have to be a bailout, but we don't have to.
We have
Uh,
PBS.
That's
Well, is there something to be said though is there something to be said, however, for the free market element of journalism? In other words, we have again sort of the survival of the fittest. If
Yeah.
you're the one coming out with untrue news stories and you are an unreliable news source, will you not be sort of rejected by the public? Whereas if you are government funded, then you are arguably beholden to whatever the government wants you to say.
Well, again, that's like selection bias, though. So
Right.
if I agree with the New York Times, I'm more likely to purchase the New York Times. So that's going to keep that opinion afloat.
Right. Well, I
Um,
guess that's what I'm saying. No, I mean, if it is just a free market element, then is that not a good thing?
No, I certainly there's room for that, but I
Mhm.
think there needs to be some other way. I mean, we need something to change because the way that it goes now, the very few people that actually put money and resources into actually looking into stories and actually doing real reporting, then just get clickbaited, like the salon thing where you take the story, you repost it, you change it, you make a couple of changes, and then all of a sudden it's everywhere.
Yeah, but can it be also said that the change is here, and the fact that if everybody online is a journalist, then it is changing, and it forces everybody to be true. Because I mean, if a journalist posts something that is untrue,
Mhm.
whether they've just failed to fact check or whether they blatantly lied, whatever the case may be, Twitter will fucking
Yeah.
descend upon them
I was
like
gonna
a
say,
horde of
Twitter is
fucking
the
trolls.
all-encompassing judge right now.
Yeah, it
is-
really is.
Well, then do we just encumber places like Facebook and Twitter and YouTube to kick back financing to the people that are generating those things?
Oh, I guess that's interesting. That's an interesting perspective. Like, so you are still
Creating citizen
presupposing,
journalism.
right? You're still presupposing the fact that you ought to be paid for your journalistic endeavors. Correct?
Well, I mean,
That's what you're saying.
well, someone's got to go do the thing, like we were
Well,
talking
right,
about.
but again, like let's just say if everybody on Facebook is by nature of them being on Facebook a journalist, or can be a journalist,
Yeah.
and if you post a story, you get, but you could get paid for each story you post on Facebook.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, it's kind of the Huffington Post model, just kind of drawn out to everyone.
Oh, really? Any user can post on Huffington Post and get paid for it?
Not any user, but
It still needs to get fact checked, whatever. So
Exactly.
there's still going to be a group within Facebook to fact check it. But so in other words, Facebook then pays.
I
its
don't even know
users.
that fact checking is an equation there. I think it's literally just views in this world that we're in now.
Yeah, I guess they don't have to. But if we're talking about responsible journalism, I feel like Facebook, it would be at least beneficial for Facebook to have a fact checking entity within their corporation if they're paying their users to be journalists, right? Because then it's
Well, I mean, it's again not necessarily journalism. Is just paying people for generating traffic. So it doesn't have to be.
yeah,
you know,
but
any-
no, that doesn't answer the question of journalism.
people are already doing this. The status update is their news some ways, and that's what what Twitter was during like the Iranian Revolution. Like people were just posting videos, but that would be the equivalent of. A
Well,
news
yeah, but
story.
Sean's suggesting the
paid?
possibility of
Well,
just-
there's a job that needs to be done,
Right.
and people need to get be able to eat when they do that.
right.
So if we're going to try and fix the system, if we're going to try and make it sustainable in some way, rather than just the government handing out money, PBS style, even though that's a ridiculous sort of myth, and they get advertising dollars more than anyone else. But the idea
Paid for in part by viewers like you.
is small part. Most of it's
understand, I know.
the Carnegie Foundation.
Yeah,
and-
exactly.
Yeah. But I don't even know where I was going.
The question is how to fix journalism in
Yeah.
general. How to because right now the corporate model of it is a little bit too intense. So, and that's what's sort of bastardizing whether or not something's true or not. We've got Coca-Cola just in the middle of a Syrian crisis. It's like, well, inflation,
Yeah.
whatever. So how do we get the dollar out of journalism and get the capital J back in journalism? as it were? And so you were saying that, okay, well, if it has already changed, because I said it might be changing with
Yeah.
Facebook, whatever. If it has changed, then does it not become do those corporations, quote unquote, unfortunately they are corporations, become the beneficiaries of their journalists if their journalists are the ones who are creating traffic?
Yeah.
And so it would just be Facebook, but it still isn't
Right.
a corporation, though. That's the problem.
Well, I mean, if most of us are getting our news from Facebook, does that not make that a journalistic endeavor? If, we are the ones driving that traffic, should they not share in that revenue? I mean, that gets into a whole different debate on, how.
Sure, no, it's an interesting thing. That's what we already discussed. But
Yeah.
but I guess the new question though is that, well, isn't Facebook a corporation?
Yes.
Sure. I'm not sure where that goes though.
Well, again, what we're trying to
The whole
fix
point
is
is
the
to go
fact
away
that-
from that.
Right.
Yeah.
We're trying to fix the fact that corporations are the ones who are funding the
Oh,
journalistic endeavors.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So then, what else is there other than that or government funding? I mean,
Well,
Well-
I guess we could go ahead.
Okay, the BBC's pretty good.
that's
it's-
government funding.
government-
I know,
Yeah.
so that was my point. I guess it's certain you hate PBS. Clearly, no, you don't hate it, but you were.
No, it's
But it's not-
another source.
Yeah, but I'm just saying there are certain countries where obviously government-funded news is great, government-funded news is bad.
Yeah.
So I guess this is more of an I don't know man too. But I mean, it seems like the BBC does a great job. Why are
Mhm.
they doing a great job, and why is others horrible?
Because PBS is not publicly funded. It's a small portion of their actual revenue that comes from the government. Most of it comes from the corporations. Really, they're beholden to the same masters that everyone else is.
So should
The
we be
BBC is
taxed
well. The
more?
BBC is actually completely, almost completely funded by the government, and so they are basically given carte blanche. They are, their own entity with their own checks and balances, and they don't have to be beholden to making sure that they are satisfying their corporate masters.
But why are they more reliable than a news source in America? Because I think they are regarded more reliable. here.
Certainly, yeah, I would put them up as one of the more reliable sources. That's
If they're
not
not
to say
beholden to
infallible.
anyone, why are they so?
Well, I mean, again, maybe that is the fact that they are government funded.
Yeah,
The government funding element of it takes away the risk of you being shut down and closed out. Thus, you don't actually have to be entertaining because you're already funded. And it is arguably, you all of a sudden are under some possibly like a federal crime by lying about it as far as a
Yeah.
government
agree.
agency. It's like there's an element of responsible journalism in the very model that it is government
inherent in
funded,
it,
right?
yeah.
It's inherent.
But
Um,
Sean, are you not clearly worried just from this overreach of government, just for the fact that they could report stories in favor of the government and that kind of thing?
Oh, and I'm sure they do, and
Yeah.
that's that.
But you just think that's the nature of the beast? Like,
Well, no, and that's why I did not propose government funding as the solution.
Oh.
It possibly is one of many solutions, but we have to understand that we are not living in the same system that we were. Just like the music industry had to figure that out, and the movie industry is figuring it out as well. They have to figure out how to regenerate their income or recalibrate their income, the revenue generating.
Oh,
machines.
so wait. So are you
Right.
saying that the BBC is reliable because it's the British government rather than the American government? Like the American government might be less.
No.
Okay.
No,
So then you don't. So to what degree do you believe or not believe the BBC versus?
what I'm saying is the BBC is not the only news source in Britain. So you do have a mix of those.
Got it. Okay.
Other funding.
Got it. So the fact that PBS
that
is
does make
sort of a joke isn't really. Well, no, NPR though. NPR
NPR is the
is.
same thing.
What do you
Same
mean?
corporate funders as.
I understand.
PBS.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Oh wait, same corporate funders. They're not
Yeah, yeah.
publicly funded.
They're as publicly funded as PBS is, so they get a small portion of the
Right,
revenue
but so
from.
that but they are quote government funded in a sense.
Yes, but they are still beholden to their corporate masters. They still have to make sure that they don't say anything bad about GE or the Carnegie Foundation or
Really?
any of the. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I guess so. I don't know.
If you listen to those stories, there's a lot of puff pieces that get sneaked in, especially
I
about
see,
wonder
okay.
drugs that are coming out, and there's a lot of backdoor shenaniganery there. This is America. The dollar rules all.
Oh, sure. I mean, I believe it. I just don't. I don't know, man. I don't even fucking watch the news, man. It's so disheartening.
It
It's
is depressing.
so disheartening.
I feel like Sean just said this too. You need to sometimes take a break. You just need to like a few moments away from the news just to kind of decompress. I think a lot of people are like that, especially
You
considering-
can't now. You can't now, man. It's too intense right
Can't
now.
you can't take your eye off
You
it.
can't take your eye off it, man. It's just fucking crazy what's going on. I don't
have cable, so I'm pretty kind of.
have cable either. But
Oh, really? You still...
None of us have cable. We're
Oh, no.
all cord
cable.
cutters.
Yeah.
Dang.
I'm not a cord cutter.
That's what that means.
A cord
Oh.
never.
Oh, a cord cutter. I get
Yeah.
it.
Cord cutter.
For some reason, I thought you meant like a cord splitter, and you like you're stealing cable. I guess for some reason, I don't know. I don't know why I went there.
Cord Cutters is actually
right.
another really good podcast you guys should check out.
Oh,
There you go.
alright.
Okay. I mean, it's. Do we need someone right now to to help us download the fucking insanity that's going on
A curator.
across the world?
Yeah.
Or is the mere fact that it is so chaotic nice and reflecting upon the fact that it's so impossible to find the correct answer anyway?
Is that its strength?
Right.
The cross-referencing of infinite. Yeah.
Infinite
Infinite cross-referencing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The idea that, anything can be delved into as deep as you feel like
But
doing.
then why do people still so buy into
Because
the
no one
shit that's being
dives.
spewed?
Yeah, exactly.
But
Because it takes so much effort to die.
Because they're all like me, and no one wants to fucking read, man. You want
I
the headline.
guess, but then you just believe this crazy
Conspiracy
shit
theories.
of,
Information bias, selection bias, it all plays into it. Once that's why the two-party system is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because it's so much easier just to pick a team and to go with that than to actually try and form an opinion. This is why we had the problem with our representation episode, where you need to once you get to that point, it's really just kind of a ridiculous conundrum.
I don't know. What the fuck is everybody doing all day?
I don't know.
Working, paying bills.
I guess.
Well, okay. I wanted to be a journalist when I was a kid.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I wanted to be that guy in like war-torn Iraq, like reporting from Iraq. I was kind of like that crazy guy who would be like,
You
oh,
still can, horrifyingly enough.
I don't want to do it anymore.
Nothing's really changed.
I don't want to do it anymore.
4 wars later.
I thought it was really, really noble. I mean, it still is. I don't disagree there. I'm just saying that was kind of a cool.
Vice.
Oh yeah.
Vice. How do we not talk about Vice?
Exactly. Like and currently
Vice is
I love
fantastic.
documentaries, so I would love to work on a documentary like that kind of thing and travel to a crazy place. I'm
Sure.
all for that, and I think that that's the kind of thing that that seems noble enough to risk your life for. To make some sort of story known to the world that wouldn't probably be known before.
Is it noble to stand in a hurricane?
That might be a stretch.
Yeah, and that's usually where you start.
But I do agree that there's something to be said for being there. I think that, and that's a key there because it costs a lot of money.
Did you
And
guys
then-
see Nightcrawler?
No, I didn't. I
Yeah.
want to see that. Actually.
Oh, yeah, that kind of a really good example of just like
Yeah.
falling
The
into that.
bastardization of-
That
Did he create the news?
pretty much,
Okay.
yeah. That he
Well, yeah, it goes into that.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you kind of fall into that trap again if you're trying
True.
to monetize the consumption of information.
I don't know if we've answered the question of what is a journalist, though, which is good. I mean, we probably do need to save that. That's kind of a whole issue.
Someone with a pen.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I don't know if that's true. But as far as where do we get our news is a much more important question. 'Cause,
Yeah,
I mean, I really don't know. And it's so crucial. It's so fucking crucial to answer that question. I mean, where are we supposed to get our news then?
Who should we trust?
Who should we trust?
I don't know, man.
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
When the politicians keep politicking before you turn to excessive drinking, spend some time collectively politinkering with the show where I don't know, man. 'Cause the truth is I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I don't know,
It's okay. You can trust me. I have a podcast.